Okay, another week of crazy markets around the world. A lot of crisis, but there's always a winner in crisis, and I think it's Mexico. So this week we are going to talk about Mexico. Is it the future of manufacturing? As China's policies are scaring a little bit other countries because of their COVID policies and also their ways of trying to attack Taiwan, maybe manufacturing countries have to rise. And Mexico is a clear example of a winner in this cycle. So stay tuned, we are going to talk about Mexico and why it is such an important country for the future economy. So basically we can see here, Mexican peso is actually appreciating versus the US dollar. It has appreciated by 2.3%. So as the US dollar is reaching high levels across the world in appreciation against other currencies, it's unbelievable that a country like Mexico, with such many problems and so bad press around the world of violence and drugs and this and that, still appreciating to the US dollar is remarkable. Look, the Japanese yen is 28% lower for the year, the euro 16%, even the Canadian dollar is 8% down. So this really talks marvels of Mexico, and we are going to see why. Why is Mexico performing so well? Well, first, they also had something during the pandemic. They didn't impose such a strong systems of lockdowns. The president was very Andrés Manuel López Obrador. He didn't emphasize too much on the lockdowns and the vaccines. He emphasized of letting people decide. I think it's paying off. Also, Mexican wages are actually very competitive in manufacturing because it's kind of cheap. Electricity is one of the lowest electricity producer price in the world. So it has really cheap electricity, which allows for manufacturing, right? When you have a factory, you need a lot of energy. It's close to the US, not like China that you have to cross the whole ocean, or not like, I don't know, Vietnam too, that you have to cross the whole ocean. Even between Europe, you have to cross an ocean. Even between Brazil or Colombia, you have to still cross the Caribbean. Mexico, you just have to cross the border. So it brings a lot of reduction in costs and lowers risk. Also, you have a very young demographic and qualified labor force. Mexico has really good universities. So when you combine all of this, you have strong thesis of a great manufacturing country. But also, this also could prevent a lot of issues that are happening in the US, because as people from Central America and South America try to come to the US, if they actually find jobs in Mexico, well, they can stay there instead of coming to the US. So I think it's very interesting what's going on in Mexico. Even Mexican president in the Latin American summit, he didn't attend. He knows Joe Biden is all fugazi. He doesn't have sense of real understanding of the world. Mexican President López Obrador offered to bail out the United States from Biden-created energy crisis and start to supply electricity to Texas. Imagine that. Mexico now telling the United States what to do with their energy. So very interesting that Manuel López Obrador didn't buy into that summit of Latin America last year and actually proposed to help. And this is what we're talking about. Look, kilowatt per hour. 0.07 is lower than India, is lower than Colombia. Electricity prices in US dollars per kilowatt hour are extremely low in Mexico. Look, doesn't even compare. It's like 50% lower than the United States. It's a huge competitive advantage. It's going to really have a difference. And look at the wages. For example, Ukraine, well, it's basically destroyed, so we won't count it. But you have Vietnam and Colombia, which are very good places for wages. Though in Vietnam now you have Gustavo Petro, which probably will destroy investment confidence with raises in taxes and trying to expropriate the rich ones. But in Mexico, a monthly wage for the unskilled workers is $242 and is really close to the US. So why don't take advantage of that? And the monthly wage for a skilled one is 773 with a corporate tax of 30%. But the corporate tax is actually not an issue because it's very similar to other countries, but it's the geography position and the low or the very competitive wage that could actually have a lot of benefits. Why you have to go to all the way to Vietnam if you can just have your manufacturing right in Mexico and just cross the border? I think it's fascinating what will happen in Mexico in the next years. And look at that. Manufacturing wages per hour. Mexico at 2.1%. And China. Look at China, how it moves from 1.2 to 3.6. And Portugal just decreasing. So Mexico has then remained constant. Politically speaking, it's a country that is stable. Insecurity is improving. Has a strong currency. Is close to the border. Manufacturing wages are very stable. So I think the case for Mexico is very strong. I think as time progresses, you also see that 30% of manufacturing of cars from the US happen in Mexico. So you already have a strong sense of manufacturing in the car industry. So why not bring more industry there? And also, why not Mexico be like Brazil, right? A teacher for the other Latin American countries, that when you have strong independent energy, you can thrive even in a year like 2022. So stay tuned. I think Mexico is going to do great. We personally in Mere Finance have some exposure to Mexican peso because we think it's going to keep going up. But we also recommend Mexico to start increasing in their capex, so their capital structure, because it's not at the level of China. But if Mexico starts to wind up and increase that capacity, then China's position as the global manufacturing, it's not going to be threatened, but Mexico could alleviate a lot of that unnecessary risk, unnecessary dependency that countries put in China for the manufacturing and supply chain needs. So thank you. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next episode of Mere Finance.